go.
I don't like to be alone. I need to speak to someone.
Okay.
That's what makes my mind frame goes back. Obviously, I'm schizophrenic, bipolar, sir. I don't take medication, so right now, that's why I'm trying to stay. That's why I told them they need to hurry up when I'm in this mind frame.
Okay.
So that when I speak to you, it's clear.
But
another thing, what I'm about to do to you, the sheriff office, and you guys need to be honest with me.
Okay.
Because if we're going to make this work and get this closure for this family, you're going to have to tell me what you have and what you don't have. That way I know if I have to go get it for you, because these are my cousins.
Okay.
These are my two family members, the ones that were in the house that day.
Okay. Okay.
They're brothers. But the one of them, you think I'm a mental case. He's a severe mental case. He has documented being in Lincoln Regional Center, Psychiatric Hospital. See what I'm saying? So if he goes into it, like even when y'all arrested me, I don't know if you were on the team, but he was acting up when they were pulling us out the house.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So I just don't want this to, that's why I didn't want to talk down at the jail, because there's family members on my dad's side, because this is on my father's side.
Okay. I get him on the stick, all right? I'm going to make you a fresh pot, too. That's not the best, but it's what we got right now. But I'll make you a fresh pot. Here it is. All right? You good?
I need to speak to her superiors about this, the ones that I know that can...
He's my boss.
This is a man.
The ones that I know that can make the...
Nikko.
John Pankin.
First of all, this is going to be a long night, but you're going to get everything that you're going to need to give her family closure. But I want you to understand something, and I'm going to say this very clearly. I was not there. Only thing I was hearsay, not hearsay, but to say, like, okay, my religion of Kathoni Asumpel, that's the underworld. He was like on the mummy, the black book. So this was them, my little cousins, the one that were in the house with me. That when I got served a search warrant.
Right.
This was their ritual of sacrifice. And I'm going to give you from A to Z. This is not no goose chase. This is the real deal right here, which you people signed up for.
Okay. Before we get any further, though, I need to read you this rights advisory form, okay? Okay.
I never knew the who, the what, the when, the where. Only thing I gave was the intelligence. Okay.
Describe this to me. What this 9mm? Describe it to me.
Describe the weapon.
Yes.
It's a high point. It's a high point. I believe it's a high point rifle. But it shoots 9mm slugs. And if you was to see this weapon, you would not believe that it was the murder weapon. Like I said, weeks prior to this, when I first got out, I gave intelligence. Like I said, I didn't know who was coming, what was coming, who was it going to be used on. All I did was give the intelligence.
What kind of intelligence?
Intelligence of when would be the best window of opportunity. What roads to take in. If you're going to do something way out west, they have cameras on the lights. As you know, when you take Fort from Military Ave, it takes you all the way out with no cameras, pitch black at nighttime. You realize that one, right? So if you're coming from that crime scene, you can hit it straight out to Fort, and take Fort all the way back to Military Ave, all the way to the Walmart. That's right off the interstate. Ain't that Walmart right off the interstate? Off of Military Ave?
Yeah.
So my point is, things like that, the intelligence of what paths to take, you know what I mean, to avoid the cameras, things of that nature. The bar closed at this time, bartenders, and they walked out to their cars, but after that, you know what I mean, you know what I mean? Because the specific point was to get her to an isolated place. You see what I'm saying? To where, and obviously, when you're out there, only thing that's, like, especially off of Maple, once you leave off of Maple, everything is black. Everything's black out there. So it was a perfect opportunity. And that's why y'all don't even understand, man. I don't understand how hard this is for me right now, because I'm portraying my family. Do y'all understand it? This is not just me. I understand one family's getting closure, you know, but I'm literally betraying my family and my bloodline.
After...
You all right?
You all right, man? You all right, man?
That's what I don't understand, man. Is that all I was in the Nebraska Armed Corrections, man. All I wanted was help from the people, man.
Yeah. You'd like to find somebody, or somebody might have something.
Do you need one copy or not? Yes, please. Okay. But I'm telling you right now, what I just given them, I will testify to that. And this is the first time that I've ever aided and assisted law enforcement in my life. So any jury, any judge, any prosecutor will be, once I sit on that stand and testify to this, it's golden. Any jury is not going to look at me and say, oh, he's told before and he's done. With my history and my reputation and this first-time testimony of ever aided system enforcement, and everything that I'm saying is accurate.
Okay. This is, you gotta come to terms.
I understand.
Because here, listen to me. But listen, I've listened to you for a long time. It's time for you to listen to me. Because like what you said, if you don't tell me what the heck happened out there, people are going to think the absolute worst. People are going to think the absolute worst. Hey, if this is a robbery went bad, if there's someone panicked, if they did something really stupid, now's the time. Because otherwise, you're right. They're going to look at Nikko Jenkins as a flat, bloody killer. That's what's going to happen. Do you not realize I got Nikko Jenkins? Do you not realize that? I got Nikko Jenkins. I got you.
What do you mean you got me?
I got your DNA at the murder scene. I got your DNA in the car.
Sir.
I got the weapon. I got Nikko Jenkins. I don't need to make... I don't care about it. I just want other people that are involved in it. What the hell happened out there? And why? I already... I know who. I know what. I know when. I know where. And then when I talked to you earlier, you were saying stuff about a carjacking.
That woman's husband and children, that woman's husband is grieving right now. This is not just some psycho killer that just wanted to go trophy. I am documented psychiatrically disordered. I've documented chemically imbalanced. This is a fact.
Yeah.
So my point is...
We're well aware of that.
My point is this, though. This family didn't deserve this.
Right.
This could have been prevented had it not been for the Nebraska Department of Corrections doing what they knew what they supposed to have did. And they never gave me an opportunity. They never gave me an opportunity for treatment because I wouldn't take the medicine.
Though there wasn't much love inside the courtroom as two psychiatrists testify whether Nikko Jenkins is competent to stand trial on murder charges.
That's right. Yeah, he's insane. He's a psychopath. Well, you could be both. You could be insane and a psychopath.
But does Jenkins understand the charges against him and what happens in court? That's what a Douglas County judge must now decide. And Judge Peter Battalion says he'll make a decision sometime tomorrow. Good evening, I'm Rob McCartney.
And I'm Brandy Peterson. The judge will look at three very different accounts of a self-confessed paranoid schizophrenic.
A man who prosecutors say killed Andrea Kruger, Curtis Bradford, Jorge Cajiga Ruiz, and Juan Uribe Pena in just 10 days last August.
KETV News Watch 7's Christina Engdahl is live at the courthouse with the big story at 6.
Rob and Brandy, we've heard it before. An Egyptian god speaks to Nikko Jenkins, but a psychiatrist in court today says he thinks Jenkins is faking it, while another doctor from Douglas County Corrections testified of all the people he's evaluated, Jenkins is by far the most dangerous.
He's in irons and locked up. He's in Mod 20. Nobody goes near him.
And Douglas County Corrections psychiatrist Dr. Eugene Alavito says no one should go near Nikko Jenkins, a man he describes as aggressive, impulsive, insane.
You wouldn't want to mess with Nikko and be on his bad list, I'll tell you right now.
But Wednesday's hearing isn't about Jenkins' sanity. It's whether he understands the charges against him that'll determine if he's competent for trial.
I mean, there's differing opinions, obviously, from the testimony, so we'll just see what the court says, and we'll deal with it no matter what.
Testimony from three psychiatrists. The first, Dr. Y. Scott Moore, who suggests Jenkins may be faking for secondary gain. And then Dr. Bruce Gutnick, hired by Jenkins' attorney. He diagnoses Jenkins with schizoaffective disorder, a combination of schizophrenia and personality disorders like narcissism, paranoia.
So a person can be mentally ill and still be competent.
But Nikko Jenkins' public defender Tom Riley says it can be a fine line, especially since Jenkins has repeatedly said he can't even trust his own attorneys.
When clients of ours have mental illness, that's not an uncommon situation.
But as to whether Jenkins is faking that illness, Riley says the only way to know is professional opinion.
You have to rely on the history and in some ways, how they react to medication.
And in court, Dr. Oliveto testified that Jenkins took medication for 2 weeks at DCC and reacted, quote, wonderfully, but says Jenkins stopped when denied lunch. Assistant Douglas County Attorney Brenda Beadle calling that manipulative behavior, saying Jenkins simply has no regard for rules. And Jenkins also had multiple outbursts in court today saying that Don Klein violated his rights. He even told multiple psychiatrists that he planned to sue the Douglas County attorney. Klein says that right there is proof that he understands the system and why, in his opinion, Jenkins is in fact competent to stand trial. Back to you.
All right, Christina
The
Engdahl
judge will determine whether serial killer Nikko Jenkins is competent to face the death penalty. Jenkins murdered 4 people in the summer of 2013. Juan Pena, Jorge Ruiz, Curtis Bradford, and Andrea Kruger.
The latest chapter unfolded today. In fact, Nikko Jenkins testified at his own competency hearing. Senior reporter Jake Wazakowski was in the courtroom. And Jake, what did he say?
Well, Jen and Craig, I've had conversations with Jenkins for quite some time, and he said that he's wanted to testify for quite some time. He goes into graphic detail about some of the incidents that he's mutilated himself while in solitary confinement. He says since he was arrested in 2013, he says it's causing him to detach from reality, become paranoid, and also causing him to harm himself. Now, Douglas County Attorney Don Klein cross-examined Jenkins very calmly and more or less got him to admit that he understands what's going on in court and that he can help in his own defense. Douglas County Attorney Don Klein even went as far as to say that he wasn't acting paranoid or acting psychotic in court here this afternoon in front of the judge. Now, I did speak with one of the victims of one of the mothers of Jenkins' victims. She says no matter how heated, some of the testimony gets, she's going to be here no matter what.
Evil. There's a difference between mental and evil, and this here is evil.
Curtis Bradford's mother, Valita Glasgow, says no matter what it is, no matter how long it takes, she'll be in the same courtroom as Nikko Jenkins. The spree killer is convicted of murdering her son and 3 others in a 10-day span that terrorized Omaha.
It's very, very, very hard to sit that close to him, but I'm going to do it. I don't care how hard it is.
Today, the competency hearing for Jenkins, who's been housed at the Lincoln Correctional Center and State Pen since August 2014, most of the time in solitary confinement. Jenkins has since mutilated his face, tongue, and penis and attempted to hang himself at least twice. He also swallowed a set of keys. The defense's psychiatrist, Dr. Bruce Gutnick, testified Jenkins still suffers from mental illness and that these incidents emphasize that. Dr. Jennifer Simplebon, a psychologist for the Lincoln Regional Center, said Jenkins was faking mental illness. She testified he was doing these acts to get what he wants, like a radio, TV, or different housing. Glasgow says it's upsetting because her son doesn't have a choice.
I don't feel like he has the right to say where he wants to be housed, because my baby is housed on top of my mantle in an urn. How does he get to say how he's housed?
The oral arguments have ended at this hearing. Now, both sides will file briefs within the next 3 weeks, and the judge will make a decision after that whether he's competent or not. One more thing that Jenkins said during his questioning while he was being questioned is that his intellect is not affected by his psychosis. Reporting live in the Douglas County Courthouse in downtown Omaha, Jake Wazakowski, KMTV Action 3 News.
You could say Nikko Jenkins and his relatives have had a colorful past. Just look at their family tree. 7 felons in just 2 generations. Let's start with Nikko's uncle, 51-year-old Warren Levering. He's a felon just released from prison in Oklahoma and has done time in Nebraska, too. Investigators say he's fathered 7 children with 6 different women in 5 states. This week, prosecutors charged him as an accessory in the murder of Andrea Kruger. They say he helped Nikko get rid of Kruger's car and tried to set it on fire near 43rd and Charles. Prosecutors say Levering got the gas can from his sister's house, Nikko Jenkins' mother, Lori. Lori just bonded out of jail herself this week on an unrelated felony terroristic threats charge. In addition to Levering, Lori has 2 other brothers. Both are convicted felons. One is even currently on parole. Investigators say Lori Jenkins had 6 children with David McGee but never married him. McGee died in 2009 but was a felon himself, convicted of terroristic threats. Of the couple's 6 kids, 4 have been arrested in the past month. 23-year-old Erica Jenkins is a convicted felon, now facing murder and weapons charges in the death of Curtis Bradford. Friday, she told Judge Caniglia she can't be a killer because she's 3 months pregnant. Investigators say she has a 7-year-old son, too, that initially was placed in child protective custody. Erica's little sister, 18-year-old Lori Sales, known as Lolo, is charged in Bradford's murder, too. Prosecutors say she got rid of the murder weapon. A third sister, Melanie, also a convicted felon, bailed out of jail last week on unrelated terroristic threats charges. She's 25, and investigators say she has 3 children under the age of 7, and all were initially placed in child protective custody. As for Nikko Jenkins, he was just released from prison before prosecutors say he shot and killed 4 people. He's 27 years old and legally married to 22-year-old Shalonda Jenkins, seen here in a recent interview, and told us she's pregnant with Nikko's child. Nikko has 2 other sisters, both live out of state, and neither are in much contact with the Omaha Jenkins. A broad look at the ties to one man, a man prosecutors say has uprooted 4 other families.
Six News is there as the mother of Nikko Jenkins walks from court, facing up to a quarter-century more behind bars. What she had to say live at 5. Good evening, I'm Joe Chiodo. Happening locally live at 5, a family known for crime. A judge hands down a verdict for mom's role in her killer son's gruesome crime spree. I was in the courtroom as the judge found Lori Jenkins guilty on 2 counts. She's the mother of Nikko Jenkins, who shot 4 people to death.
It's injustice, completely malicious prosecution.
No evidence, injustice, malicious prosecution. Those words shouted at our camera by Lori Jenkins. Friday morning, a judge told her she's guilty on 2 counts of being an accessory in her son's August 2013 killing spree. Nikko Jenkins killed Juan Uribe Pena, Jorge Cajiga Ruiz, Curtis Bradford, and Andrea Kruger. Christine Bordeaux, Nikko's cousin, was there for several of the murders. In court, Judge Peter Battalion found Lori guilty of disposing of Bordeaux's clothes that had gun residue on them. On count 2, he found Lori guilty of lying to investigators when they asked if she had bought Nikko ammunition and whether she was the woman seen on surveillance video from the store. There was 1 count. The judge ruled not guilty. Lori was accused of providing a gas can that Nikko later used to try and set Andrea Kruger's car on fire. You see it here. The judge says she did provide the can, but didn't know what it would be used for. Because of that, she can't be convicted. The state is happy with the ruling.
Obviously pleased with the verdict. He's got a good sentencing parameter there. She's looking at up to 25 years if he runs the 2 counts consecutive, so we're pleased.
The defense wasn't caught off guard.
It wasn't unexpected. Evidence as it went in was not favorable to my client, obviously. There are clearly questions as to what actually transpired, but I was not surprised, no.
He stands by the fact that Lori had no direct involvement with the actual homicides themselves. Lori Jenkins will be sentenced April 3rd for the convictions announced this morning by Judge Battalion. She's already serving 10 years in federal prison for purchasing the deer slugs Nikko Jenkins used to kill his victim.
It is tonight's big story. The sister of spree killer Nikko Jenkins is now a convicted killer.
Erica and Nikko Jenkins shot and killed Curtis Bradford in August of 2013, just one of 4 murders tied to their family that month.
As Joe Chiodo reports, today's guilty verdict is finally bringing closure to Bradford's mother.
God take care of the rest of us. Justice was served.
This is Valita Glasgow, just moments after learning a jury found Erica Jenkins guilty of murdering her son, Curtis Bradford. It's a pain most can't imagine, but behind this pain is something Valita's been searching for since the death: closure and answers.
I got a lot of answers, a lot of questions. Only one remains, and I just have to leave that be. Let God take care of me.
Valita is now looking to God after she says justice was served. The state's major key witnesses over the past week, all family of Erica Jenkins, sisters Lori and Melanie, and a cousin, Brian Sterling. Each testified against her, saying she discussed the murder with them.
It was here near 18th and Clark where the prosecution says Erica and Nikko Jenkins lured Curtis Bradford back in August of 2013. Erica shooting him first, then Nikko. In court, prosecutors say the witnesses told them Erica was mad that Nikko, quote, stole her kill.
I think it came out in the evidence that it was all about Erica and her motive.
That evidence was difficult for Bradford's mother to hear, but she's thankful it was revealed.
Thank you to those witnesses, because that wasn't an easy task for them to do what they did.
Now, a year and a half later, she's walking out of this courthouse for good, still in pain, but for the first time, with closure.
Well, time and time again over the past year and a half, we have seen Erica Jenkins make appearances here in the Douglas County Courthouse, oftentimes when she comes outside of a courtroom making comments to the media. Interesting to note, though, today she did not appear for her own trial. We asked Bradford's mother what she thought about that. She says, well, she doesn't worry about things like that. It didn't matter to her. Reporting live downtown with photographer Justin Cheney, Joe Chiodo, WOWT 6 News.
The defense team tells WOWT that they are disappointed in the verdict.
Erica is set to appear in court next week, facing charges tied to the murder of Andrea Kruger. And prosecutors say Erica was with Nikko the night that he shot and killed Andrea.
Therefore, this panel finds that the death penalty is appropriate, should be, and is hereby given for each of the 4 murders by the defendant. It is therefore the sentence of this court as follows. At case CR 13-2768, Count 1, murder in the first degree, a Class 1 felony, death. Count 2, use of a deadly weapon, firearm to commit a felony, a Class 1C felony, 45 to 50 years to run consecutive to all murder convictions at counts 1, 4, 7, and 10. Count 3, possession of a deadly weapon by a prohibited person, Class 1D felony, 45 to 50 years to run consecutive to all murder convictions at counts 1, 4, 7, and 10, and count 2.
Welcome back to another episode of Greenlit Gang TV. We're going to be talking about none other than Nikko Jenkins, full name Nikko Allen Jenkins, born September 16th, 1986 in Colorado. He was someone who basically you could say was predisposed to this life of crime. Grew up in a family of dysfunction, of a criminality element. You saw the clip where they break down his family tree. Felons everywhere, crimes everywhere, violence everywhere. Doesn't matter the gender either, males and females on both sides committing all sorts of horrible, heinous acts. So when you have that element at a young age and you're exposed to this kind of stuff, it doesn't surprise the courts, it doesn't surprise people when you see these sorts of things happen. Now, obviously, what made Nikko Jenkins so infamous was the 4 murders he committed in Omaha, Nebraska in August of 2013. But just his appearance, his courtroom outbursts, the interrogation tapes, him cutting his face and tattooing his face, all the crazy stuff he said about the Egyptian god Apophis, telling him to do that. Apophis is the god of darkness and chaos and destruction, which, to be honest, Nikko Jenkins totally embodies that. At the age of 15, he was locked up for a carjacking. That, along with assaults he committed in prison, gets him an overall sentence of 18 years. He does 10 and a half on 18, gets out July 30th. Fast forward to August 11th, 2013. 5 a.m., a patrol officer finds the bodies of Juan Uribe Peña and Jorge Cajiga Ruiz. I hope I pronounced that last one right. They'd been shot in the heads, pockets dumped inside out. And they were not, they were dead. They were murdered in cold blood. You fast forward another 8 days, so a little over a week. August 19th at around 7 a.m., the body of Curtis Bradford was found outside a detached garage. 2 bullet wounds in his back. Now, the interesting thing about Curtis Bradford is he was the only victim of the 4 that actually had ties to Nikko Jenkins. And there's a Facebook picture of him and Jenkins together. And it was taken the day before Curtis Bradford was murdered.
And you see with his sister, she actually helped, Erica Jenkins helped commit the murder of Curtis Bradford. So this goes into the family having a lot of criminality issues. Obviously, his mom, Lori Jenkins, helped him cover up these crimes. Okay? We'll go into that a little bit later, but first we're going to talk about the fourth and final victim, Andrea Kruger. She was found August 21st at around 2 a.m. She'd been locking up her bar restaurant after a bartending shift. Deputy sheriff responded to shots fired. She was found lying in the middle of the road with multiple 12-gauge gunshot wounds to the face, neck, and shoulder. Just a brutal, brutal attack. Her 2012 Chevy Traverse had been stolen. Now, she was found at 2 a.m. on August 21st. 6 p.m. that day, the Traverse was discovered. A poor attempt had been made to set it on fire, so they were obviously able to get all the evidence, get everything out of it. Nothing had burned. What was crazy is that his sister, Erica Jenkins, his mom, Lori, and his uncle, Warren Leving, who actually was helping him commit the murder of Andrea Kruger and an accessory after the fact in that murder. So he had help. You know, the mom, Lori, was the one that helped him buy the shotgun and the ammo that committed some of these murders. She concealed evidence by helping him get rid of clothes that had gunshot residue on them. Erica Jenkins obviously helps with the murder of Curtis Bradford. You know, they were able to directly tie her to that murder. She was only 20-something years old at the time, but she had another history of committing robberies and crimes, some that led to death. And then, like I said, Andrea Kruger, Warren Levine, who his uncle, who had a long history, another long criminal history, okay? So none of this is surprising, but what makes it surprising? I mean, it is surprising in the fact that 4 heinous murders were committed in less than a month. And obviously the family dynamic, when people see it flash across the news, those clips I just showed you guys, yes, it does. It's like, wow, look at that. But when you put it in the context of the childhood that Nikko and his brothers and sisters had, the way that his mom is, the way his uncle is, their dad was a convicted felon. Now, he died in 2009, but he was a convicted felon. You know, it said 2 sisters that lived in a different state, Melanie and Lolo were the only names that I got, were also convicted felons. The mom, Lori, she was tied up in, these murders as accessory after the fact, helping conceal, but she had been in trouble in the past. So basically what it's saying is none of these people were first-time offenders. Absolutely none of these people were first-time offenders. So as you see in the clips, basically what happens is, on August 30th, Nikko Jenkins is arrested on unrelated terroristic threats charge, but they'd been building evidence on Nikko Jenkins that were leading the police to him. There was a girl that was linked to Jenkins on camera buying the exact ammo that was used in the killings. The picture with Curtis Bradford, the day before he was killed. So he's arrested on August 30th, 2013. 4 murder victims. Finally, on September 3rd, as you see in the interrogation footage I posted, he confessed to it. That 8-hour interview, you guys only saw clips, that 8-hour interview is a rambling mess. You can tell right from the jump that the police come in, and they do their best to keep up with them, but there's only so much you can do with someone like that. It basically boils down to, he says it right away, I'm bipolar, schizophrenic, antisocial personality disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder. And he relays it all into this ancient Egyptian god, Apophis, if I'm saying that right, the god of darkness, like I said, chaos and destruction. And he basically said that he did it for Apophis, that he would defend Apophis and all their beliefs with whatever brutality was required of him. He also had kind of said basically that it was the court's fault that these murders were committed because they should have never released him from prison in the first place, because he had apparently been talking about this, that he said he was hearing voices, that this god Apophis was telling him to commit these murders. And it just kind of turned into a sideshow. You know, you see in these clips, he's being led to court. He somehow was able to keep getting his hands on material and razors to cut and mutilate his face. So when you see him show up to court, he's got the dark sunglasses and he's shackled and chained at the waist, and his face is cut up, tattoos, and he's got 8 officers behind him, and he's kind of, you know, he's had these outbursts in court where he's laughing when they're going over the details of the murders. It was just crazy. It was literally turned into a circus. Speaking in tongues, howling, all sorts of things. And basically what it came down to was, psychiatrists said that yes, he had antisocial personality disorder, but he was faking his symptoms. The other ones, the bipolar, the schizophrenia, the voices and all that, they said he was faking it, and he was competent to stand trial. He was also, after he was found guilty of all that and sentenced to death, he was also competent to be given the death penalty, because you basically have to, when you're in a penalty phase, you have to prove that the person understands that they're going to be sentenced to death and what they're going to be sentenced to death for. And that was a big part of this Nikko Jenkins case. So was he going to be able to understand that he was actually going to be killed by the state of Nebraska? And again, kind of going back to him blaming the court systems and the prison system, he actually sued. He filed a lawsuit against the state of Nebraska, against the correction system in February of 2014, saying he was wrongfully released from prison. That's what I was saying just a couple of minutes ago, telling prison officials and guards that he'd been hearing voices. Yeah, he'd been kept in solitary confinement, which actually gave him the schizophrenia. But like I said, ultimately, that stuff, at least by the people that evaluated him, was proven false. Yes, he had antisocial personality disorder, but that did not basically absolve him from committing these 4 heinous murders. So like I said, his trial in general, which was heavily covered by the media, that's why I was able to find as much content as I did, heavily covered. I mean, it was a circus. And then when the media dives into the family members, it just gives you so many different inroads and so many different side stories to go on, because they're all tied into one, with Nikko Jenkins being at the center of that and the face of this crime. But you have the mom, the sister, the uncle, these other sisters that don't even live in state, the dad that had passed away in 2009. So it was just an ongoing saga. The whole family tree is just filled with criminals. So April 16th, 2014, he was found guilty of these murders. So like I said, the state was going for the jugular. They were going for the death penalty, which is a huge undertaking. Even when it's clear as day, right? It was clear as day. He confessed to the murders. All right? He confessed to the murders. But they still put you through the ringer when you are trying to kill somebody. All right? So it took another 3 years, like I said, and delays and all sorts of things and psych evals to finally get to the point where he was by a judge. So he basically, Nikko Jenkins decided that he didn't want the court, like a jury, to decide his penalty fate. He let a group of 3 judges, like I showed you in the video, decide his fate. And ultimately, in May of 2017, he was sentenced to death plus 450 years for weapons violations. He's been on death row going on basically 7 years. He's one of 11 inmates on Nebraska's death row. His case is still, though, heavily covered. I mean, his case is just an example of family gone wrong. And I'm not absolving him of his crimes. These are horrible, awful murders, broad day, random killings. You know, I look at the victims and they just race, gender, age, you know, but you just see how starting off at a young age in a horrible, horrible environment, what it turns into. And unfortunately for Nikko Jenkins' victims, it turned into death. So I really, really hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is one I'd also been wanting to cover for a while. Like I said, I remember watching about this guy and just being kind of blown away by the facts of the case. His mom was sentenced to 10 years, and then she ended up getting another 5 or 6 years on top of that for helping him conceal evidence, accessory after the fact. I didn't see what his uncle got in time, accessory after the fact. His sister, Erica Jenkins, she's doing life in prison in Nebraska for helping him commit the crime of Curtis Bradford. So, you know, two people getting life, or one getting the death penalty, one doing life. The mom getting 10 years plus. She's supposed to get out in 2028. It's just crazy. So anyway, thank you guys for checking this video out. I'll have another one in a few days. Let's roll.